We do apologize for being so late, but it could not be avoided. So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have met in closed session. We have a quorum. We have the approval of minutes.
So I will move the approval of the minutes for the May 19th meetings.
Julia moves.
I second.
Terry seconds.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye. Here.
I'm sorry, Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Cavanato.
Aye.
Nancy Kupfer.
Aye, thank you. This is the first reception of visitors where the public is invited to address the board on anything the board is going to be speaking on tonight. Seeing none, we have the recommendations and reports of the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Kupka. We're going to make a couple deletions in this list of reports. However, the first report, co-teaching audit, data collection, we will do. As the board is aware, this has been a strategic plan district goal for a number of years. We've had a difficult time trying to wrap our hands around it, figure out how to do it. A number of people have tried their hand at it. We're finally at a place under Mr. Wugazer's leadership where we think we've got a solution. So Mr. Wugazer is going to make a very brief report.
All right.
This is important stuff.
Pressure's on.
I wanted to first off thank Keith Dvorkin. He helped me a lot with crunching the numbers. So I'll jump right in it, but we really had a focus on collecting data without a control group. So we decided to look at the PSAE reading and math and then the performance reading series. And we noticed a significant change that took place in the 2007-2008 school year. So I'll kind of walk you through the data there. There we go. So the first data really looks at just a composite of the reading and math data. What we're looking at is the percentage of students that meet or exceed the PSAE in reading and math. And because we had identified the 2007 as our year, those are the bar graphs that are the lower ones, and then we have, the higher ones are obviously from our post 2008 averages. So you can see that we've had an increase in both the district reading and the district math for the percentage of students that meet or exceed. It's kind of cut off there on the bottom, but we just identified through it that is a significant increase. And then the next data kind of then breaks it down into the reading data, and what I wanted to highlight is kind of the group of the pre-2008 and then the group of scores post-2008, and kind of noticing that you can see the jump in the test scores, or really in the percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding on the PSAE. So this is the reading data, and then the averages for that went from like 26% to 45% averages. So we thought that was significant. And then the math data, same thing. I just wanted to illustrate again, that's that group of the pre-2008, the 2008 to 2013. So looking at the math, and then that was going from 24% averages pre-2008 to 44%. So again, a significant jump in the percentage of students meeting or exceeding. And really what we found was that we really introduced co-teaching kind of full force into the district. So this kind of chart, you can see obviously pre-2008 is pretty much at zero. There might have been a few, but really the 2008 school year is when the district really put an emphasis on co-teaching in 300, and so you can see the steady growth of access to 300 level courses. So we're excited about that, and again it demonstrates that this was our year that we thought. So then what we wanted to do for the next part is we wanted to identify the number of seats that are being used by students in co-taught classes. So we wanted to take a look at this to make sure that, you know, our data was reflective of what we were seeing. And I'm just kind of illustrating a little bit of South High with the blue data that I've circled, but you can see even at, you know, South jumped from 2008 for 200 seats, you know, up to 400 seats in 2014, you know, co-teaching a few more seats than even North. So it's been a great progression for both buildings. They did it a little differently, but they're both, you know, pretty consistent now, and I think our results are consistent, which has been wonderful. And then, again, keeping with trying to look at, you know, was our data being accurate? We started to look at our instructional level classes, which are classes taught by our special education teachers, or skills level classes. And so we were looking at just, again, the number of seats that were being used. I kind of just highlighted again that we're looking at, they're going down. So in this case, the number of seats in those instructional classes or the special ed classes are being reduced, which again then reflects and shows us that the access to the 300 level is truly a significant factor. And then this slide here with the data, it obviously represents, as you can see, all of them are kind of curving from the left being 2007 in each category to 2014. They're all curving down with, again, the number of seats that were being used. But what I really wanted to illustrate, probably from a student perspective, is students would come into the district and they would, say in science, would register for earth science, then take biology 200 as a sophomore, and then physical science 200 as a junior. Well, with co-teaching and allowing the access to 300, our track now is we have students coming in biology, chemistry, and physics. So it's been a wonderful, you know, just, you know, increase of allowing exposures to those rigorous courses. And then the performance reading series is an assessment that we give our students that they take, all students take it in the fall and the spring. The data, what's really interesting about this data, and probably the most significant, is that the first left column there, the 09 fall, that's taking all our freshmen that ever took the performance reading. So it took each, you know, so if you're a junior, but when you took it as a freshman, we took that data. And what it did is it put a large amount of data together, and we were trying to illustrate the students that went from, if you look at the column on the left, which is the, you know, has an IEP 09 fall, you can see that it's just above the 2,800. When they're spring of their sophomore year, you can see the number of the scaled score jumps up above 3,000. Those are significant increases. That goes from kind of a low-medium score as a freshman to a high-medium score as a sophomore. And those are kids that are in those co-taught classes. You can also see that it actually closed the gap from our non-IEP students' scores, which is the second column bar graphs, and then the far right. You know, so it was pretty significant results. So we're excited about that. And then we also surveyed students, and I was trying to get fancy and pretended like I was Twitter. And I literally went through and did a file find in a Word document of their results, and I counted them all up. And so these were their top, the black lettering is what their words that popped out. And then I went back and read kind of what they said, because students were giving us direct, their own thoughts on what they felt co-teaching, you know, was for them. And a lot of them, and it kind of goes in the order of what they identified as the, you know, the most responses using the word help. But they talked about help in learning. They talked a lot about how elaborate, where they had different opinions from and ideas from two sets of teachers being in the classroom. They talked about how supportive it was, having two teachers. They thought that there was an improvement in their own grades and understanding of the content. They felt that the accommodations were better provided to them with having two teachers. Obviously, two popped up, but being two teachers in the classroom, and then understand, because it was the teachers were understanding their needs. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to just kind of see, based on all their comments, what words they were using to describe co-teaching. And then we did do a survey. It's hard to read on the bottom, but 87% of the students surveyed, we had over 400 students that we took data from, said that co-teaching was, highly effective for them. And then we also took into account the teacher voice. So I did the same thing, trying to identify, some of the words that they were using. And it came out as student success. They thought collaboration with another teacher improved on the instruction and delivery of the content. That they, also said that it supports all students. And there was a distinct thing about all students too. It wasn't just the special ed teachers were reporting as well that they were helping not only special ed students but also regular ed students. The improved instruction came out. All was another word, so student learning, and then two again for two teachers and being highly effective. And then really in summary, so I'm sorry I'm going really fast, but we really looked at, the co-teaching has provided more students the access to that 300 level curriculum, and that's really what it's all about. And we've, I think, shown through our two different, the PSAE reading and math improvements and the performance reading, that we've seen some significant changes, for the better, and we've closed the gap in the performance reading scores between our special ed students and our regular ed students. Obviously, our students are reporting 87% of them, really find a value in co-teaching. And then our teachers obviously, believe in it and are working really hard to support the students, so they thought it was vital for student learning. And then really our vision is we'd still want to focus on our student achievement, because even though we feel like we, have some great gains, we still feel like there's a lot more that we can be working on and using this data to drive some future things. Professional development is always on our mind of what other things we can do. I think a strength of our program is that we offer collaboration time in the summer for our co-teachers, and then we also work really hard to have common plan during the school year. And then obviously, we plan on continuing to look at data collection and analysis to, kind of this, for me, we're reporting to you today, but this is going to be just for me an ongoing process of really looking at the data every year. And things like that, because I think it's important to evaluate what we're doing. So that's kind of it in a quick overview. I don't know if you have any questions.
I think we always suspected it was working. I think now we have some evidence that it is, and that's good to hear. And we are working really well.
Yeah, I think it's a really positive thing.
So thank you. This is something I think we've wanted and needed for a while. So it's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Experience. Have you been able to identify anything else any other changes that have been put into place over those years that might have also impacted?
Yeah, and that, I mean, with probably the hardest thing with anything is that we don't have a control group. You're not going to have a kid and say, okay, you're not going to go into the co-taught even though you need it. But we did introduce a skill building program at both schools. Steve Bill brought that to South a number of years ago, and then North started that a few years later. That could be a factor. I mean, I think also we worked really hard on maybe not having common plan time, and then now have common plan time is what's critical in our programming. We went from having staff go out to professional development isolated. So if I was the co-teacher, I might go to a co-teaching conference, but if Mark and I are co-teaching, we would actually we shifted it and said, we need both of you to go at the same time, same conference, so you can really share ideas, and the district supported that. So I think there's been a lot of changes that we've made, but it is hard to identify exactly, because we've done a nice job in the skill building program as well. So
One thing you might want to think about, you don't have to have a control group. I mean, you don't. You just track the data over time as you hit.
Yeah, kind of what we did, yep.
So, I think from a statistical, that's fine. What you might want to think about doing is making a timeline and tracking where you actually did do different interventions. Because you're never going to, to your point, you're never going to tease it out. But it would be nice to know over a period of time, these are the interventions that came and whether or not we saw a spike. And if we didn't see a spike over time, then maybe it's not worth doing that intervention.
Yeah. No, that's a good
It's
idea.
lovely data, though.
Because it really is it's a district effort in co-teaching. I mean, between the professional development of assessment literacy and Project Chris and cooperative learning, and so that is a good idea to track when we're doing that. I will do that.
Anything else?
Nancy?
Go ahead.
Just a comment, or a question. It seems that you didn't have any trouble finding teachers who are willing to do this.
Oh, no,
in
absolutely
the
not.
code, which is great to know.
Evaluation. Yeah.
No, it's like I said, it's a
That's-
very positive thing. I mean, both schools are being sought after a lot in terms of our model and,
I can imagine.
wanting to come observe and things like that. So it's been
Great.
a nice thing.
IASB conference.
Yeah,
We should be at the IASB.
Yeah, right. Give a presentation.
yeah.
Anything else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank
Job
you,
well
that's
done.
really encouraging.
Very good.
Administrative salaries?
We're going to withdraw that agenda item, and we're going to withdraw that from the website at this time, Dr. Kupka. We're also going to withdraw the agenda item energy conservation report because one of the persons scheduled to make the report is not able to be here tonight.
Okay.
So now we will move on to the Common Core report. The board has, over the past several years, heard periodic reports about our progress on the Common Core curriculum, and I'm starting to think that we should not call it that anymore, because that's gained a sort of a negative connotation. In fact, what we've been doing is changing our curriculum by integrating it, integrating in math by integrating courses, integrating in English and language arts by integrating those skills with other subjects. That's purely our decision to do that. That's not called upon. There's no book that says we should do that. No politician told us to do that. This is our initiative. The Common Core part really then is the test, which has some issues, and we'll see how that plays out as we go down the road. But in some ways, I think we shouldn't call it Common Core anymore because it gives a negative connotation to something I think is very positive for our students. So I know we have several people making the report. Mrs. Accardi is one of those persons, Mrs. Hash, and is Mrs. Schwarz here?
No.
Ah, Mr. Bronke's here from North, and Mr. Hellman's here from North. Is there anyone else I missed?
That's it?
Okay, another brief report, right, Ms. Accardi?
Yes, Dr.
You don't sound too confident.
Thank you. We'll really try. So basically, tonight, we are going to provide you with updates regarding our speaking and listening focus for grades 9 through 12. We'll talk about our integrated math courses, give an update on the work that we've done this year in terms of writing, and then share with you information regarding what will take place this summer, and then our focus for next year.
All right, so when we were here with you, I think it was November, maybe October, November, we shared quite a bit about what had been done really the previous year to lay the groundwork for what we thought was going to occur this year. So this year we truly did kick off kind of our implementation of the Common Core work that we had done primarily with our 9th and 10th grade students, because that's what we had spent time the previous year preparing for. The Common Core standards are grouped as 9, 10, and then 11, 12. So while we've always certainly been instructing students on speaking and listening, specifically presentation, listening, and discussion skills, this year we did direct instruction. It was planned as to where it was going to be taught to the 9th and 10th graders and how and when it would be assessed as well. So we began that work, and while that started in the fall and continued obviously throughout the year, Gina and Janice Schwarz and I convened a smaller group of teachers who began looking at the grade 11, 12 standards. And they flow right off of the 9, 10 standards, so that was not nearly the daunting task that the 9, 10 standards were. And so what we did was we added to the list of learning targets that had been established the previous year, as well as the glossary that was established. And I'm happy to say that those are at least very close to being in final form after many revisions. So really the 9, 12 targets and glossary are prepared for the speaking and listening standards. Along with that, we also planned, we had developed the previous year the rubrics for the assessments for the 9, 10 students, and so we planned additions and revisions to those rubrics to make them appropriate for the juniors and seniors in the coming years. And we've spent this whole year really gathering feedback from the teachers about the 9, 10 rubrics. There are 3 rubrics. the presentation, discussion, and listening. And we know that they need some tweaking, and actually Mr. Bronke is working with groups this summer, I think they started today, to revise those rubrics. So in the fall, again, we should be in pretty good shape, not just with our 9-10 rubrics, but with the 11-12 as well. We actually used those 9-10 rubrics this year to give pre and post assessments in all 3 areas. So district-wide, if you think that the 9th graders, each 9th and each 10th grader was basically pre-assessed and post-assessed in those 3 skills, over 4,600 assessments were given each semester. So needless to say, that's a huge task that the teachers undertook to get a real gauge on where the students were at the beginning of the year and where they were at the end of the year. But what makes that so worthwhile is that over time, obviously, the teachers will be able to use that information when they plan their instruction. So next year, ideally, sophomore teachers will be able to look back and say, this is where the freshmen in my class were last year on these skills, or junior teachers, the same thing, be able to look back. They can't see freshman data because we didn't take it, but they could look at the sophomore data. And over time, our junior and senior teachers will be able to look at the progression and the growth that the kids have made in all of those areas of speaking and listening. That information, some of it is already in Home Access Center for parents to view, and so we got some phone calls saying, can you explain what this is? And so right now it doesn't mean as much, again, because there's not as much of it. But over time, I think that'll be a lot more valuable too to students, parents, and teachers, because it'll be more longitudinal and they'll really be able to see some growth. This year we had PLC teams in each building that focused on our Common Core work, and one of the big things that came out of that was a clearer vision for how to teach and assess listening, and I think Mr. Bronke's going to maybe talk a little bit about that. But to really teach students, this is one of the first times I think we've had a chance to sit back and think about, what does it mean to be a good listener? To be able to evaluate not only what you're hearing, but the person or the people that you're hearing it from, and to become a really good consumer of information, which I think we all would agree is really important, rather than just be able to hear what the teacher says and write it down in my notebook, which is also important. But so we had those groups worked on that. That was a very complex task that they worked on this year. So last week, on Thursday, the 12th, the teachers in both buildings met for an hour in mixed groups so they could hear about some of the work that teachers had done over the year with all of these, the targets, the rubrics, the teaching, the assessments, everything. And among other things, they were able to hear about some of that work that was done with listening and see what was done on both sides of town, because I think we're pulling that together in the listening arena now to come up with some really good stuff. So these sessions really allowed teachers the opportunity to hear how the Common Core is being implemented across the building and gain ideas as they move into next year for their own classrooms. So at this time, I think Mr. Bronke's going to pick up there.
Thank you. I could probably talk for the next 4 hours just about what we learned about teaching listening, but to save us all that headache, I'll just focus on one point here on this particular slide. I think oftentimes in education we hear kids say things like, we have done this before, but with a negative connotation, like, oh, we've done this before. The message that came out of the June 12th workshop that Georgia was just talking about was kids are saying, yeah, we've done this before, but in a really good way. The driver's ed teacher, when he or she gets ready to do something with listening in the classroom, the kid's like, oh yeah, we've done this, we're good, like we're ready to go. And that was our goal with this whole thing, is that, you know, as Dr. McDonald said, that we get these skills into all classes. And based on that workshop on the 12th, I think it's really happening, so that was really positive. I wanted to turn over though to the writing standards and give you guys a look at what we have done and where we're going with that. one of the things in an effort to continue to make our work with these standards our own and most friendly for teachers and students, we made a shift this year. When we worked with the speaking listening standards, we unpacked those into learning targets by standard because that's what seemed logical, that's what it seemed like we wanted to do. As we started talking with teachers, though, we found that they were using the rubrics for instruction more so than the standards or the targets, which is a good thing. It means that our rubrics are valid and that they are productive for both assessing and instructing. But then that made the targets being grouped to standard not very user-friendly. And I'm going to show you a quick example of what I mean by that. If you look at the, this is one of the standards here for the writing. And I've organized or underlined some of the different skills. Those are not underlined in the actual standard themselves. I added those. There's about 7 different things you need to be able to do to meet that standard. And so if we unpacked that into learning targets and left those all underneath that standard, teachers would have to sift through to try and find the skills that were needed. So instead, what we did is we organized the targets by instructional skills. So as I'm getting ready to teach writing in my class and I know I want to work on evidence today, I don't have to look through all 7 standards and the 8 or 9 targets within each standard to find out what I'm supposed to be teaching. I can just go right to the evidence bullet point and pull those out. And that's been, or is going to be as we implement these, I think a huge change that teachers are very excited about. And that's partly in response to teachers and partly in a response to just continue to make this our own. And so it's something that is a big change that we're very excited about. And this has led us to realizing that there's going to be some shifts that need to go on in order to meet the standards. That the way we think about writing is going to have to be more global, more real, and less quote, playing school. And I think, again, that's a great thing. These 4 bullets up here, thinking about audience, purpose, medium, and argument, if we're not doing those, students can't meet the standards. And I don't know if we've always done that in writing instruction. And what I mean by that, here are 2 targets that we've unpacked. You can read them yourself, but in looking at those, it'd be impossible to meet those standards or those targets if those 4 bullets from that previous slide aren't taken into account. And so we've got some shifting in how we conceptualize writing instruction that's going to have to happen. And so in order to do that, what we've decided to do is, and when I say we, this is my counterpart at South, Eric Bourne, and I have decided to kind of reconceptualize and refocus PLCs heavily back into analyzing student work, and to do our PLCs crosstown next year. And we're really excited about this. And so what we've decided to do is put together what we're calling writing cohorts. And these writing cohorts have members from both North and South departments and a representative of 9, 10, 11, and 12 in the cohort. And what this allows us to do is to take all the targets we've written, and they've created an action plan where each cohort, we've got about 11 of them, are going to pick some of the targets that they want to work on collecting student examples of. And so let's say they're going to pick a target that says, I can write for purpose and audience. They're all going to go do that with their kids. So you've got a 9, 10, and 11, and 12 teacher all doing that, then bringing it back to the cohort to say, what does this look like vertically? What does it look like to consider this as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, a senior? And we're going to let that student work and that vertical alignment sort of drive where we put the sequencing of instruction for these skills. And so we're really excited about it. It's also going to allow us to do a little bit more grade level work too, because on the days next year where we're not doing the double block of PLC time, where we have like a PLC and a PD session going on, we're going to stay at our own campuses and take all of the 9th grade reps from all 11 cohorts and bring them together to share what all the different cohorts are doing. So we're really going to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone, or even 3, because we're going to sequence the targets. We're going to do vertical alignment, and we're going to do grade level alignment, all centered on student work. And so very excited about that for next year. Still a lot of planning for that to come to fruition over the summer. Eric and I are going to be meeting several times to put that into place, but very excited about where that'll lead us with these writing targets. And I believe with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gina.
Yes. So for next steps, next year we are going to focus, we'll still be working on the writing standards, but we're going to focus on argument. We've narrowed it down to argument, as you saw in much of what Chris said and the underlines that he had in the standards. We're really looking here at claim, we're talking about evidence, we're talking about audience, we're talking about purpose, all those things, but with an argument. And that is cross-curricular. In fact, that applies to areas you might not think of. So, for example, in math, one of the 8 habits of mind involves having students construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So it applies even in areas you may not think of in terms of just English or social studies. Really the focus, even with speaking and listening and argument, the focus is on critical thinking. We want students to be able to critically think. We need to teach them those critical thinking skills. So in addition, we want to make connections between the speaking and listening that we've been working on and the writing, specifically argument, as we work next year. So some of the work that will be occurring, we will finalize the argument rubric. I think you heard Georgia mention that they've been working on really all of the rubrics, both the speaking and listening and the argument rubric. We're also working on professional development because we need to work with teachers to make sure that all teachers, even though the committee we've had for writing has been over 30 teachers, so we've had a nice cross-section, both buildings, all departments, we need to continue to work with teachers. So, for example, we have, on our August Institute days, we have breakout sessions related to writing and argument. So, for example, incorporating writing, questioning, adapting for audience, counterclaim, peer set, all those kinds of topics that teachers will be able to select which sessions they go to based on what they feel they need. In addition, departments will work together to develop how they will incorporate argument or further incorporate argument into the courses and how they'll use the corresponding rubrics. So much work this summer and into the fall. And with that, I will turn it over to John Heldman for an update on mathematics.
Well, I will try to remain equally or even more brief if possible, but there's been a lot of work, as you're aware, in mathematics as well, and it's nice to be sitting here with 1 full year of implementation under our belt as opposed to just planning as we've been involved in. Just some highlights in terms of where we've really been since the meeting in November. Our collaboration with the feeder schools continues to remain strong and strengthen. It's very exciting that every public feeder school to District 99 had on-track 8th graders in Common Core 8 math, and that their advanced or accelerated students in all public feeder schools were in District 99's version of Math 1, so that there won't be any curricular gaps or anything missing in that regard. So that's a huge positive step forward. We've also been sort of a front runner and have helped lead the way for some other groups. Just in April and May alone, we held site visits where we hosted teachers and or administrators from 5 different schools, all the way down from Decatur up to Round Lake and Antioch, coming to consider integrated, or they made the decision to go integrated, and they want to learn from us and some of the things that we have figured out over the course of our journey. We've also been honored to be able to present at ISBE panel on integrated mathematics, attended a couple of Spring Institute days at a couple other schools. Paul Stevenson, my colleague, or I were able to do that, as well as a PARC consortium with the local superintendents in the area. So we've really both been learning from others, but also showcasing the work that we've done and really showcasing the district as well, too. It's been a wonderful, positive PR opportunity, in my opinion. And in terms of the PR with the community here within District 99, we used a monthly newsletter that was extremely successful in terms of communicating with parents and feeder schools about what's happening in Math 1. Through Jill Browning's continued efforts, we continue to have a very nice website on the district homepage in terms of Q&A for math, and even somebody from California a couple weeks ago was doing a search on integrated math and found our website, called me up. We had about a 25-minute conversation. So there's been a lot of efforts going on to make sure that we're doing right by kids and helping make sure everyone's informed of that as well. Like Gina said, the work that the ELA has done is really a strong correlation to the work that we're trying to do in math. Constructing arguments and critiquing reasoning has really been a cornerstone of the work we've tried to do in Math 1 and will continue to be a cornerstone of the work we do in the future. It is a problem-based learning course. It requires kids to discuss discover things through problem-based learning, and that has been very different but very positive. And as Dr. McDonald alluded to earlier, obviously Common Core and Park have some fairly negative connotations associated with them all of a sudden. But this was never about Park, ultimately. It was really never about Common Core, as Dr. McDonald alluded to. It was about teaching and learning practices and shifts in those practices that do right by kids and promote critical thinkers and lifelong learners, and that's what we've tried to undertake as part of this process. Wanted to share a little bit of some data with you in terms of first semester. What you see on the screen is a comparison of Algebra 300 and 200 grades from last year compared to Math 1 and 1S grades from this year. It is not a typo. I chose to share this with you in terms of a mismatch of semesters for a couple of very important reasons. Second semester of our previous algebra course contains more direct content link to the first semester of our Math 1 and 1S course, the new course this year. And more importantly, the level of rigor in second semester of algebra in the past is much more correlative to the level of rigor in first semester of Math 1. Because if you'll recall from previous presentations, much of what used to be in first semester algebra has now been translated into grades 6 through 8 under the new Common Core standards, whether you go integrated or not, as a mechanism for content delivery. So we looked closely at the second semester of last year in algebra compared to the first semester of this year in Math 1. And we see very little differences, which is actually a celebration because of the increased level of rigor and the notion of conceptualizing mathematics at a deeper level than has been in the past. If we do a little bit of a comparison of apples to apples, even though we don't have finalized second semester data from this school year, we took a look at the third quarter grades, and I think a celebration that we wanted to share with you today is that if you look at Math 1 this year in third quarter compared to Algebra 300 last year in third quarter, there's an 8% decrease in D and F grades. This is celebratory because the things that are happening in Math 1 by the time we reach third quarter are things we never even got to for the most part in algebra because of the increased rigor. And I'll offer that the third quarter of Math 1 is probably the most integrated part of Math 1 in terms of covering algebra, functions, geometry, and statistics, all within a course of 9 weeks. And the fact that there's a decrease in the number of D's and F's confirms, at least in part, in a correlative way to me, that the integrated approach is an approach that works for kids. I also included the Math 1S compared to 200 grades there as well. That's equally celebratory because Math 1S is not a watered down or scaled down version of Math 1 the way that Algebra 200 used to be. So the Math 1S students, yes, have an additional half period of instructional seat time with their same teacher, but they're being exposed to and held accountable for through assessment and teaching practices the exact same content of the Math 1 students. So to see there be a decrease in DF grades in Math 1S compared to Algebra 200 is really something worth celebrating, in my opinion. We gave a student survey in both buildings at the end of the year, both north and south, and we had some deviation of questions, but we used a common set of questions as well. I just wanted to share with you a few of the highlights that you can see on the screen regarding that. Students cited high levels of increased understanding in math. They cited high levels of being able to identify information. I'm really proud of the third one, having almost 84% of students state that they can verbalize or explain, and I should qualify that explain meant in writing. So as opposed to simply showing the steps of how to solve a problem, we did a lot of work with students this year in Math 1 where we almost had like interviews as informal assessments, as well as asking kids to write, and even in an English modality, submit multiple drafts of a solution where we provided feedback to them regarding their reasoning, and we had 84% of students feel that they were confident in their ability to do that in some fashion. And then to go along with the grade data earlier, we had almost equal number of students agree that integrated math was a mathematics that helped them better see relationships as opposed to in the past. A few anecdotal comments. There was an open-ended section at the end of the survey. What was different about this year? What did you like? What did you not like? I thought the first comment pretty much summarized everything that we've been sharing with you for the past
Common
3
Core
years.
is different.
It is different, but you'll notice that there's some comments about the pedagogical approach and the shifts that we've taken. We're still teaching. One of the misconceptions is that we just turn the kids loose for 50 minutes and we check back in with them at the end of the period, and that's what Common Core means. That's absolutely not what occurs, but we do require a greater level of responsibility and initiative on students' part, and they rose to that challenge this year. My favorite is the second from the bottom, in which the student talks about having more time to talk things through. We did fewer problems, but more in depth, and I understood more because of that, and Common Core affords us that opportunity. This is a very long quote from one of our higher achieving freshmen that I'll let you read at your own leisure, but I would point out the last two sentences at the very bottom. It really captures the essence of Common Core. We are expecting students to be inventors and invent ways of solving problems. We capitalize on multiple ways to solve problems. And the student is exactly right, that training the brain to think like that is hard work, and it takes effort and energy. In terms of next steps, where we're headed, we've already had some professional development opportunities this spring. We had a workshop at each building in which all teachers that are going to be new to either Math 1 next year or as part of the initial Math 2 group receive some professional development, not just from the department chairs, but from the teachers in the trenches about the lessons that they learned, and they really provided some great insight for those teachers. We're going to continue that with some workshop time this summer, where the Math 2 teams will specifically be meeting to work at a deeper level on common assessment creation. One of the things that's exciting to me is that in addition to having a greater level of common question sets, both informal and formal with Math 1, we also have a set of common problem-solving exercises and problem-solving techniques that we're training teachers on and then asking them to use and implement in their classroom, much like the cross-curricular approach of ELA in terms of the rubrics. We see rubrics being a very natural part of where we're going to be moving in mathematics as well too, because of the success in the ELA work that has occurred. We're going to move Math 3 into its initial formality stage this summer. Park tells us what Math 3 should be, and Common Core tells us what Math 3 should be. We're going to run that through the lens of District 99 and what we've already done with Math 1 and Math 2, and make sure that we have nice alignment and an integration over the course of 3 years, and we'll begin that work this summer. And then most exciting is that we really have a two-pronged approach to our implementation this fall. We're going to implement Math 2 in its initial year. We're excited because we have an honors component of that course. So in addition to incoming freshmen that are accelerated, moving into a Math 2 honors, we've also identified a set of kids in each building that were Math 1 students as freshmen in District 99 that we're going to challenge to take Math 2 honors next year. Track them carefully in terms of their challenges and successes, and be able to make even more informed decisions about what makes an honors student honors when it comes to Common Core mathematics, because it's not just about computation anymore. And so we're going to track those students closely. We're also excited that we're going to be in year 2 of Math 1, and we have some students from Math 1S this year that we are going to move into Math 2 because of their success level and their passion for the subject in some cases. We're going to track those students as well too, because the whole goal obviously is to get students into the most rigorous but appropriate placement. So the Math 1 and Foundations for Math 1 work this year was a huge learning experience for teachers as well as for my colleague and myself. And the exciting part is that we get to implement all the lessons we've learned about Math 1, both in Math 1 and Math 2 as well. So it's really, like I said, a dual approach. And we will have a group of students that are predominantly exposed to at minimum 1 year of mathematics through the Common Core lens as well too, whether they be incoming freshmen or sophomores. Lastly, we're not going to give up on that habit of mind work that continues to permeate the rest of our old curricular sequence, because things are working there, and we're going to continue to make tweaks as well. But overall, Through the support of the board, Paul and I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the support that the administration as well as the board has provided in allowing us to make this shift, in delivering period and a half classes that get kids to perform near the same level as what kids can and should be performing at. And we're still a couple years into being settled into this process, but it's very exciting to look back on a year's worth of implementation with a lot of fond memories and happy thoughts about what's going to be happening in the future because of this. It's good for kids. It's been the biggest challenge for a set of teachers this year, but both the teachers and the students have risen to the challenge, and we thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Comments or questions?
Any questions?
I had a quick question for you. Since Math 1 was taught in the feeder school and also in our high school, were they taught, did you feel that a student taking it in the feeder school would have the same success rate as somebody who have taken it in the high school?
I would anticipate that that would be very much the case. They were using, from the beginning of the year through quarterly check-ins with all of our feeder schools,
Right.
between Paul and myself, they were using our curriculum guide. All of them adopt some level of the program that we adopted
Okay.
in terms of last spring. And I think that we heard very similar experiences from them as I heard from my teachers. And we were able to network collaboratively because of that. And I think that the experiences that either 8th graders or 9th graders bring into Math 2 will be very similar.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to help keep that process going between the two?
I think as Paul and I reflected about that a couple weeks ago, we look forward to the opportunity of bringing them back to the table with us and saying that we've got a year under our belt, but what is it that we want to do collectively and collaboratively?
Right.
And Rick, I really think that this process, not that we haven't wanted to do it in the past, but with people involved in so many things, this process has forced both the feeder schools as well as District 99 to come together and say we have to do this collaborative. It's not going to be
Right.
top down, and that's been the exciting part.
That's great.
Of it.
Yeah, that's great.
If I could. So we have a fair number of students who aren't taking Math 1 or Math 2. So what about them, including some incoming freshmen that'll still be on the traditional track as well? So
We've worked with the schools predominantly in the private or parochial sector that have not made a transition to Math 1. And what some of those schools have done is actually try to implement a hybridized version of algebra / Math 1 to ensure that students have at least a foundation of the material that they need. We also have a number of students that are going to be taking Math 1 over the summer school, starting in a couple days, either to enter into Math 2 or to just take the part of Math 1 that they missed by being in a traditional algebra class as well. So we're trying to think about other creative ways that we can address that concern.
what about, this was not actually my question, but I appreciate all that you've just shared, because it's a concern too.
Please re-ask. I'm sorry.
I was actually thinking in terms of the other end. I mean, I have a freshman daughter who's going to be coming in taking geometry.
Okay.
As a freshman next year, and so because she was algebra 7th grade, and then no, I'm sorry, she's going to be taking advanced algebra trig.
Advanced algebra, correct.
Or
Okay.
trig or whatever. My son had the acronym. Anyhow, what I'm saying is, this is all wonderful stuff, and I'm wondering the kids that are still, in the traditional track.
Mm-hmm.
So which would be the more advanced mathematics classes, because we've been eliminating as we go along, right? No longer teaching
Correct.
just algebra now.
Right.
So are there things that we're doing to integrate some of these wonderful things? Because this is kind of a selfish question. I mean, I feel like my kids might be missing out a little bit.
No, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for re-asking. I apologize that I
it's-
didn't understand the first time. That goes back to that habits of mind and the mathematical practices piece that I talked about a little earlier. We have by year, actually, this is the third year now, in the advanced algebra and pre-calculus courses, and to some extent geometry this past year, we've implemented those problem-solving techniques and problem-solving activities into the existing or old curriculum to help students develop their critical thinking abilities. And we're also cognizant of the fact that in whatever form it takes, the PARCC test is about to become a reality. And so what we've also done in those the courses in the previous curriculum sequence is try to align both learning experiences as well as assessment experiences that will be more in line with what the PARCC will look and feel like for students. So in addition to being prepared for the ACT, they're going to be prepared for a more open-ended, problem-solving based assessment.
So when you're developing the rubrics, like you're talking, will those you'll integrate those into the more traditional track classes that are still in place too, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We'll continue to work on modifications in advanced algebra trig next year without the complete curriculum shift or piece. Unfortunately, we can't get the level of integration into advanced algebra trig that we can into Math 1 or Math 2, but that hasn't stopped us from focusing on the mathematical practices and the habits of mind that develop that type of thinking with students.
So we're not leaving any of those students behind
Absolutely
either, and
not.
it's an important point to make in all
Thank
this,
you.
because and we hear from parents about math quite a bit, I know. And the other quick comment I had was about the argument and critical thinking. The negative to that, I'm speaking as a parent, is I find myself losing arguments.
Focus on counterclaims.
And that's
We find ourselves as teachers losing arguments more and more
And this
as well.
is just my son. I'll have a daughter next year and then 2 more after that. So I'm in trouble.
You're done, you're just done.
So anyway, sorry.
It's called teenage years. Any other questions? I do have one too, but Julia, go ahead.
A quick question regarding the argument. Would like to have just an example of what would be an argument that would be presented. Just.
Well, recently, in my own classroom, trying to get my students to reconceptualize writing assignments to consider audience and purpose and such, I created a hypothetical situation. We finished reading the book Night, and so instead of just doing a traditional lit analysis type essay, a book that's a little, maybe controversial, a little bit graphic, I created a scenario in which it was kind of, I could do this a little being the department chair. I said, write a letter to the department chair advocating whether or not this book should continue to be taught. I created a situation of like a condition in which I fabricated the fact that we're debating whether or not we're going to keep this in the curriculum. And they were like, "You guys really thinking about that?" I was like, "No, but just pretend, right?" It was one of those kind of things. And so they had to think about, do they think it should be there? Why should it be there? And we actually did it as a digital essay, so they were embedding links into their argument as well for supplemental support to the argument and linking to videos about the Holocaust and all sorts of really cool things.
Oh my goodness.
So it's reconception of that audience. So instead of just writing a traditional, the author meant this by this book and here's why, they still had to do the same skills, but in a very real sort of way.
Interesting, thank you, that's exciting. That was exactly what I needed to know, what it would be like.
I had one question, and this is great work, and I'm not trying to diminish from this at all, because this is just fabulous. And although we appreciate you giving us the credit, we'll take it. We know you really deserve the credit. What about the comments the negative comments about core from students? Were there any trends there?
In terms of the survey?
In terms of the math survey, probably the biggest trend was in the area of needing assistance or wanting assistance at the level that the teacher was not willing to initially provide it. We did a lot of work where we asked students, both individually with a partner or in small groups, to process as part of the problem-solving experience before getting an answer or a hint from a teacher. And I think that was a shift for a lot of students, and that was probably the biggest theme that came out. And we did have a few students that said, I would have liked to have just done algebra all year. When I got to that geometry, it was really hard. But I think some of the numbers that we showed were pretty consistent across the board with most of the questions about the interconnectedness and the ultimate feeling as though they had support, but they felt good about ownership of the process, from start to finish.
Thank you very much. To your point, though, I just have to say, as with an incoming freshman, I've never heard anybody at my kitchen table say, I can do this before this year, so thank you very much for that.
That's good. Good statement.
Anything else? Okay, I think we.
Yeah.
Appraisal report?
Again, apologize for the number of reports. We're somewhat at a loss because we don't have as many workshops in the summer. This is another area that's in the strategic plan and the district goal to improve our appraisal process. There has actually been quite a bit of work for the last year directed by Pete in this area, and he'll try to give a brief report too. Right, Pete?
I will make it brief, and I want to start by saying, even though I'm presenting, this is work that's been done by a lot of people, and at the appropriate times during the presentation, I'll acknowledge the people and the work that they've been doing. You ready there, Mr. Bolina? All right, so the three things that we want to briefly talk about this evening: the Administrator Academy and the follow-up workshops that we conducted this past year, the work on the DC rubric, and then the Appraisal Committee itself. As the board may remember, last August we spent our 2 days of Administrator Academy working on appraisal only, and we had Ann Rybach and Ross Trumper from the ROE come out and conduct full-day sessions for all district administrators, building administrators, department chairs, anybody who was going to be evaluating staff in District 99. We then followed that up with 5 half-day workshops that we spread throughout the year. Again, Ann and Ross coming back and working with us. As they progressed from sessions 1 through 5, we were able to provide more input into what those sessions would look like. And the ultimate goals that we set for these were to standardize the evaluation procedures that we were following in District 99 and to improve the inter-rater reliability. As we've concluded the summative evaluation process in the spring, and we took a look at kind of how did we do with half of our tenured staff, remembering that they're in every other year cycle. So, this year's group, we ended up having the same percentages of teachers rated excellent at both campuses. So we feel like some of that work that we did in the workshops helped tighten our understanding of what exactly it means to be excellent, proficient, etc. And that for this year, they were like within 1/10 of a percentage point between the two campuses. So very, very encouraging that as we move forward, we have a common understanding of what we're looking for. The department chair rubric, we had a committee of individuals: Ann Sassano, Mindy Null, department chairs from South, Rebecca Scott, department chair from North, and then Lucia Mastrodemus and Steve Bild, administrators from South, who helped me with this process. We started meeting last summer and then into the fall, and we created a rubric that was used this past year for those department chairs that were on cycle during the 13-14 school year. And then in the spring, at the leadership team, administrative team meetings in each campus, we solicited feedback from the groups. How did this go this first year? What are some things that we need to be thinking about as we move forward? And overall, they reported that it was a positive experience using the rubric, but we still have some work to do in the area of the department and individual goals that the department chairs were setting. We need to take a look at the amount of documentation needed, because remember, they're also classroom teachers, and so we were doing the teacher evaluation process for the classroom portion of their work, and then the DC evaluation rubric for the DC part of their position, and then combining those two. And is there a way for us to make this less paper heavy for those individuals who are working then off of two rubrics? And then again, the question is, we had department chairs coming on board, like Eric Bourne, brand new department chair from South High School. Should we really require them to do all of the new teacher portfolio when they're in that department chair role, and kind of taking a look next year at what we might be able to do differently, knowing we've got 2 new department chairs coming in at North. Overall, we're not envisioning making changes to this until both halves of our tenured cycle have a chance to go through what we're currently doing, and then we would potentially look to make any changes for the 15-16 school year after all tenured department chairs have gone through the cycle once. That way it's, kind of apples to apples for everybody. The Appraisal Committee met monthly during this past school year. Committee members, Brayer Teague, Chris Esposito, Christina Krein, Cindy Carmick, Janice Schwartz, Jeannie Seiler, Lisa Olson, Lucia Mastrodemus, Lynn Longmire, Riley Naff, Scott Kasich, Steve Bild, Tara Delutri, and Val Moses. And these were generally 2-hour meetings once a month where we worked on appraisal. And we started in the fall by surveying all staff, generated a list of 150 some points. Some were concerns, some were questions. The committee met trying to classify these things into various categories so that we could then look to attack the various issues. Ultimately, we aligned the pre-observation form to domain 1, and I'll show you an example of that here in a second. And again, made minor changes to the post-observation document. And then we have a series of things that, whether it's through Administrator Academy this coming August or other work that we'll do with the building administrators and department chairs, there are some things that we can do that were identified as concerns so that we eliminate those before we start the next appraisal cycle during the 14-15 school year. As an example, the pre-observation form, what we did was in the Danielson framework, you have 4 domains, and then within each domain you have various components. And so what we did is we took a look at this and said, okay, in answering question 1 on the pre-observation form, this is getting at domain 1 component A and domain 1 component C. And then number 2 pertains to domain 1 component B. And then you can see the way they are for 3. And then there's more questions, but I just thought this would give you a kind of a snapshot of the kind of work that we did so that in answering these questions, the teachers are putting themselves in a good place when they're being evaluated for domain 1 by their department chair or their designated administrator. There's an obvious tie-in to the appraisal rubric, the documents that we're requiring of them. And then again, in the post-observation form, minor language tweaks. And so I've given you some examples here of where we crossed off an all and changed it to a most, or a little to a some. Things that they felt better described what we were looking for within each of those 4 columns. Again, nothing substantive in change, but some minor language things that allowed the group to feel more comfortable in what this meant for them and then how they would be evaluated. And again, I just provided one example here of probably a half dozen of these types of tweaks that we made in the post-observation document. Any questions? Mike?
Well, on the post-observation form we just talked about, so, using this as an example where we crossed off the word all on the last column, bottom, but didn't do it above that? So in the situation where, things are, am I missing it there?
I think it's a different concept, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, each of the bullet points going across horizontally are kind of the same idea or theme.
Right.
And then the space between and the next set of bullet points, the bottom ones are the same theme as well.
Right.
And at different points, like in the top one, column 3, they felt like that all should be a most, because we had an all in the 4th column.
Got it, okay.
Oh.
Whereas the bottom one that you're referencing, the third one says most, and we just felt like we didn't need to say all there. It was just kind of implied that this is all.
All right,
So there are different places, there were different things that seemed to make the most sense in terms of the teacher understanding of what was being asked.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, question.
You're not-
Generally, this has been well-received? You've
Yes,
reduced a lot of the angst about it?
Absolutely. A matter of fact, it was reported to me that Lynn Longmire at North on the last staff day, where traditionally retirees get a chance to get up and say a few words, actually spent part of her speech time, if you will, talking about the appraisal process and assuring the staff that the appraisal committee took their concerns to heart, that everything that was listed in that survey was addressed by the committee, and that administration very much listened to what they were asking for, and that they should feel really good about the direction that we're going with the appraisal committee. So I wasn't there, but that's what was reported to me. So just
Thanks.
one
Thank you.
example.
Thank you. Because I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely, there's been a lot of anxiety, and as we move forward, we've just convened in June for the first time the informal student growth committee. As that rolls into the appraisal evaluation of staff members starting with the 16-17 school year, that too will potentially be an area of angst for staff. So our job the next couple of years is to help them understand and work with them to put a process in place that will reduce that anxiety as well.
Well, I think you're priority underway with that. This provides that foundation to build on.
Absolutely.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Any other? Thanks, Pete.
Thanks.
Freedom of information requests?
We had no freedom of information requests this month.
Okay. Consent agenda. Now we have an amended consent agenda before us. Is there anything any member of the board would like to discuss further at a later date?
Yes, I move that we remove line item 10 of the personnel report and table the vote on administrative salaries until our next business meeting on July 14th.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Craig Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye. So for the remaining items?
I move that we accept the consent agenda with the new,
The amended consent
Yes.
agenda sans the line 10
10.
of the personnel report that we just
Right.
voted on.
I'll second.
Mike seconds.
Thank you. Terry Pavasich.
aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Moving, consent agenda is accepted with the modifications as outlined. Recommendations for actions, award of bid of copy paper.
Mr. Collegier, ready for your report?
Yes, thank you, Dr. McDonald. Copy paper specifications were developed, and we bid out for the whole entire district, all copy paper and colored paper. 5 vendors submitted bid proposals. This year, we bid out recycled paper, stricter state law, and expansion of our conservation program kind of drove us to start doing that. Many districts around us are bidding recycled paper now. A slight increase in cost to the number of paper products that we bid this year, about a 1.8% increase. But it was aggressive bidding. We feel that that slight cost is advantageous to our conservation program and complying with the state law. With that said, low bid was Paper 101, meets our bid requirements. They were a successful bidder. In fact, last year they won the bid. So we urge the Board of Education to approve the award of contract to Paper 101 for $69,990.80.
Question? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, working with 58 next year, too?
Yes.
I think is worth saying. I
As
mean,
a
this
side
is a good
note,
part of your report here.
Contacted the business manager there, and we're going to work together and try to bid out and possibly save a little more money with a bigger bid package.
I move that we accept the bid, or the proposal here to
The bid.
accept the paper bid, yeah.
Second?
Julia seconds. Any discussion?
I'm just happy we're getting
Yeah.
recycled paper. We've waited for this a long, glad it's becoming affordable. That's great.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Carrie Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Cavanato.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Award of the bid custodial maintenance and ground supplies.
Jim, you're on again.
I'm on. So bid documents for custodial maintenance and ground supplies for 2014-15 school year. We advertised 22 vendors submitted bids. Good news on that, 16 of them out of the 22 received some sort of low product possible award. So that spans out to a great deal of vendors. This year, we added, in my note, in my memo, 2 products, pool supplies and HVAC air filters, which are big numbers. One of the things that is the beauty of bulk purchasing is not only do we get to buy in a bulk and hopefully get a better price, but it kind of standardizes both high schools to specific products, both using the same thing. This is a great example of what we did this year. Same poles, a lot of the same air filters. Why not throw it all out there and see if we get a good price, which we did. I kind of looked at the numbers of what we spent last year, and we can possibly save up to $8,000 this year just on those 2 products alone. So good stuff. Another advantage of bulk purchasing is as you get these prices, you lock that price in for a year. So you try to get a good number of what your needs are for the schools. An example would be air filters, but let's say we run short in air filters in February, we need some more. That same price exists all the way until the year date, so that's another beauty of it. So looking at all the bids that came in, 16 out of 22 had low bids out of the vendors. We believe all are the lowest prices available and all vendors meet our requirements. We do have a bid matrix available if you would like to review. So with all that said, we urge the Board of Education to approve award of contracts for custodial maintenance and grounds supplies to the vendors listed in that 16 in the aggregate amount of $149,728.35.
I so move.
Second.
Seconds, any discussion?
I'd like to commend you on the aspect of all aspects, and as far as bidding to multiple competitors, but also that part in there about, the polar vortex type of winter that we had, and be able to, to have the salt, supply that we had and not have to get it in the crunch of the moment is extremely commendable, and we appreciate your foresight in that.
Good foresight.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope it's not necessary again, but we're glad we have the salt.
Warm winter.
Looking for ways to economize and standardize things between the schools and put things more in bulk. I mean, we've had discussions and questions and comments about that over the last few years, and see you
good to
doing it.
see.
It's awesome. So thank you. Every penny counts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Good job.
Yes, okay, do we have,
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Carrie Pavasich.
Aye.
Rick Cavanato.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
aye. Approval of support staff contract?
Yes, Dr. Kupka, the board has received in writing and also a verbal report about the support staff contract that was ratified by the membership last week, and now it's up for approval by the board. We recommend the board approve the support staff contract.
I move that we approve the support staff contract.
Mike moves,
I'll second.
Terry seconds, any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who worked hard on getting that approval, and thank you, and thank the support staff for their hard work in that. Thank you. So
Thank you.
You did it all, I'm sure.
No, but our support staff means a lot to us.
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely. They're the
That's for
backbone of
sure.
our schools, so we thank you.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Troy Pavasich,
Aye.
Rick Cavanato,
Aye.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
and Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Let's move new business. Policy Committee Report, first reading.
Old business
Old
first.
business.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Policy Committee Report, second reading.
Second reading, right. So the policies in the second reading are policies that came before the board previous, first reading, and we haven't heard any comments, I don't believe. Mark, have anything the last day or two?
No.
So we would recommend that the board approve these policies as they are before you. So that's what I would move.
Mike moves. Give a second.
I'll second it.
Rick seconds. Any discussion?
No.
I'll never get an
Do you
award
wanna
for
read them all?
well-worded motions.
That's okay, you're in good company.
Yeah.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Rick Cavanato,
Aye.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
Troy Pavasich,
Aye.
and Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Now moving on to new business and the Policy Committee for, report for the first reading.
Right, so what you see in front of you, we have a couple policies, 4.20, 7.275, that are both being recommended. There's no corresponding district policy for them, but they're ISAB recommended policies. 3.50 is a policy for which there's a similar district policy, but changed the wording a little bit. You've got the red lines and the wording. 3.53, 3.55, there's some coordination going on there between policies and job descriptions, just bringing those things in line. And wanted to point out 6.236, websites and social media. Take a look at that. Commend Mark for a lot of hard work on this, as well as we've had a lot of conversations, right, Rick?
Yes.
We really spent some time on this, and the attorneys have recommended some things for us. What we have here really is a good policy. There's a number of things that will come with this in terms of administrative regulation, student handbook, but it is something that's pretty timely and something that there isn't an IASB policy on at all right now.
I was surprised to
which
see that.
We were too, and our attorneys said, "Hey, you need to have something here,"
Yeah.
and so we definitely agreed. Although what we were looking at first was quite a volume, and seemed maybe a little less policy and a little more procedural. So this is what we've come up with, and we think it's pretty good. So please take a look at it. Let us let Rick or myself or Mark know if you have any comments.
We think this is kind of an emerging area, which is why there's no IASB policy. Our thinking was this is one place that our existing policies don't really cover us or protect us. There is a lot of, as you know, activity on websites and social media, and we felt the need to, I mean, a lot of things in there are about responsibility, about monitoring, about making sure people cannot claim something's a District 99 site unless they get permission. We thought that was very important to have that in policy.
It could very well be that in another year or two, we're seeing some ISB policy on this, and we'll be looking at it again. But we need something now, so please
Great.
let us know.
Are you meeting before the next meeting here?
What do you remember? What do we set? We haven't set that date. Yeah.
So like within the next 2 weeks,
No,
No.
probably next month we'll be.
Yeah.
next 4 weeks? Okay.
Yeah, we did not set a date.
No.
Okay. Ready for new business?
I had a question regarding the last one. Is that, and I'm sorry, I'm not remembering, the one about foregoing life-sustaining treatment, which is obviously needed. Was this also not an IASB policy?
It is an IASB.
It is.
It is, okay.
Yes.
I just couldn't remember. Okay.
No, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again to the committee for all the hard work that you do.
Thanks.
Downers Grove 4th of July Parade?
Yes, as the board is aware, we have been invited to participate in the Downers Grove 4th of July Parade. It's not something we've done previously. Mike and Julie have indicated that they would like to participate. Just wanted to make you aware, if you do want to participate, to contact Julie or me. And I'm not sure the parameters for doing this, how many people we have to have attend. I know I cannot be there. I have a family commitment out of state. But I would presume I'll have somebody there from the administration if we're going to participate in this parade. Just so it's more like an announcement that when everyone's here.
I'm glad that Julia's willing. I like
I would
it
say
if
if
more
it's
of us
only the
could
two
do
of
it.
us,
Yeah.
probably not.
I might.
I can do it, but, you know, should we see about, because I know we talked about maybe getting some T-shirts or something that have our logo on it. How hard would that be?
Not hard.
With our logo?
We might
Well, I
have to
just think
borrow
it
a
would be easy.
convertible that somebody here owns.
Try not to get behind the horses this time.
Yeah, I know, that's the.
No, we're not gonna be like, no.
Huh?
To pick them out.
Tip of the day.
Okay, so to Julie by the end of this week with sizes for T-shirts. DGEDC?
I want to make a final plug to attend the Downers Grove Education,
Yeah, I can't make that
excuse me,
day.
Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation luncheon.
What
We
day
do
is
have several
It's the 26th.
school staff who would like to attend.
I can't.
I'm not sure how many board members have indicated Rick is going to.
Well, I'd said that I would if we're going to have a group there.
Okay,
I would do it.
Mike,
I can't make
and
it.
I think this is,
It's very important, I can't be there.
this organization is trying to elicit businesses to come to our community. They create a tax base. It puts less pressure on the homeowner.
Right.
And a larger tax
Absolutely.
base for public services is very good public policy. I think they are trying to do good work. I do try to go to their meetings. And so I would urge us, if we can, to attend that.
I really appreciate the effort to have us be a presence. Unfortunately, I do have a conflict, but I think it's a great idea. I hope that we can continue participating.
Sorry, I can't make it.
And then, just to remind the board, each year about this time, board policy requires a superintendent evaluation. And while not required, a board retreat. I did speak to Barbara Toney last week and again today. She does not do both. She does not do superintendent's evaluation. In fact, she indicated that's, IASB's been told they shouldn't do that. So she can do board retreats, and if she is there, of course, the value of that is not only her expertise, but that can be done in closed session. I will begin to pursue Dr. Attia or another person he recommends to facilitate the superintendent evaluation, if that's the board's pleasure. I do know Dr. Attia is slowing down and sort of not doing the same workload he has, because he's in his mid-70s, late 70s now, so he does like to work with his board.
Ms. Toney did a good job last time.
Yeah.
For the board, you mean for the retreat, she
For the-
did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw
I'd like
this
to see
out
both.
here. What would you feel, since we have probably the rubric for Dr. McDonald's eval over the last several years, do you think we're at
Me,
that point
Dr.
where we're
T?
capable of doing it ourselves?
We'd have to have somebody commit to organize it.
To, the writing and then the putting it, just kind of throwing it out there.
Because there is an
Have to
aspect
think about it.
of confidentiality, even amongst us, to be able to express ourselves freely within that instrument. And
That is true.
so if
That-
there's a
so
way.
it goes
It is
to
true
another
that they were all
person.
getting
Yeah,
things
yeah,
from
it's,
them.
it's not the
That's a good
organizing,
point,
it's
Keith.
It is an excellent
the,
point.
it's that, yeah.
Yep,
Good point.
it is. It's an excellent point.
So probably investigate if Dr. Attia is available. If he's not, again, his designee or somebody.
Maybe
who
he's
might-
got a
Maybe he's got
recommendation
forgotten
too.
that we all sent him a bunch of.
But I'd like to see Ms. Toney come back for a workshop.
Sure.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah,
Pretty unanimous.
Be for,
I
up
think it
for
was very
that.
worthwhile.
Okay.
She'll just check for her dates, Mark, is that?
I was just about to
I'll
ask
start working
schedule.
on that.
Okay.
When, yeah.
Yeah.
What? Maybe a Monday night?
Any other comments on any of those? Moving on, this is the second reception of visitors. This is the opportunity for the audience to address the board on any subject they would like. Okay. Communications and announcements, Lend.
Sure, Len met for the last time this school year last week, and in the interest of time, I'd have members look at Dr. McDonald's report and detailed summary that was included in the board docs last week.
And that was, and thank you for that. That was very helpful. That was a very nice summary. Sassid?
Just very quickly, I wanted to report that I attended a very moving event on June 2nd at the Czech Center for Sassid. It was dedicating a keepsake garden, which has been gathered together, and it's off to a lovely start for those special ed students who have passed on, those who are really medically challenged, and it reminded us all of how fragile some of them are. And there were some beautiful flowers and some stones, and it was a lovely dedication conducted by Dr. Volpe and attended by a lot of staff and a few families who had experienced this loss. So if you're ever in the area, you might want to stop by. And they're going to, I think, have transition students help with plantings and weeding, taking care of things. So it was a very nice thing, and it just reminded us again about how fragile some of them are.
Where is it at?
It's right in front of the Czech Center, which is at Napier Boulevard and Chicago Avenue. Sassid's headquarters are there. It's where we operate the alternative school as well, and many of our other classes. So if you're ever like driving by, as you walk into the building, it's off to the right. It's the staff, a lot of staff and their families moved the heavy boulders in and did the work themselves, and it's really quite lovely.
Take a look.
And the Humanities Council, Julia?
Just very quickly, I invite any of you to go to the Humanities Council website. One of the programs that they sponsor is a statewide program called Public Square. And you can gather in coffee houses and other places throughout the state. And a couple of topics they've been talking about lately are Illinois coal and climate change. They're very timely. And another one is the World Cup, when soccer and politics collide. So that would be an interesting debate, but I wanted to indicate how timely a lot of their topics are. It's just one of the many programs the Humanities Council supports.
Thank you. Tara, 99?
There's really not a lot new going on for the summer. We're
On hiatus. Deb, IASB?
Well, in the interest of time, and Julie put some nice things out here, as you can
Yeah,
see,
look at
that last
this.
100 years of IASB, which looks like it's going to be kind of neat to browse through. And then, of course, they were already taking applications, and that for Julie will probably be getting in touch with all of us about the conference again in November, because they've opened it up already. So June 9th they started. So, yep.
I know.
Thank you.
Another year.
Moving on to the parking lot, we've got quite a few things, including the calendar of board actions. As we discussed earlier tonight, we're going to make the calendar of board actions kind of a focus of a discussion at a workshop, and I would ask that we put joint board conference and health and safety either to rest or make some decision at that time. I know that we're coming back with the review of discipline code and participation in the National Lunch Program at
I
a
do want to
later
remind
meeting.
I'm sorry, Nancy.
No, that's fine, at a later meeting, I thought.
Yeah, the discipline code, the board shouldn't expect a report on that until at least late winter.
Fine. And the National School Lunch Program, we're going to talk about that like in a month or so, aren't we not?
No.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
August, I think.
Oh, okay.
Any other concerns or thoughts about the parking lot? Upcoming board meetings, we'll have a meeting on July 21st. The regular business meeting at 7:30 PM in the ASC, pending meeting calendar approval. Are we getting a little anxious, Mr. Mattoon? We have a vote to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you.